Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful program. I am delighted to be here, and I would like to first welcome His Excellency Mr. Daniel Chubur. Is that okay? Pronunciation? Because I could make mistakes. Thank you to Mr. Chandramohan. Welcome to Mr. Rao. Welcome Srinivas. And of course Mr. Duraraj. Welcome to all of you. We are in midst of the biggest transformation in the world. There is the power industry and the transport industry together are the biggest sectors of the world. And we are in the midst, or maybe start of, the largest transformation ever in the history of the world, where the entire energy sector and the entire transport sector are getting transformed into something new. Now, this transformation may take 20, 30, 40 years, because it's a fundamental transformation at the roots of these two sectors. And why are they joined at the hip? Because the future of transport sector is now linked to energy sector. It will be energy, electricity, which will drive the transport sector. So that is how they are linked very, very deeply. I was lucky to be part of another transformation for 20 years. So half of my industrial career of 40 years has been invested in telecom. And as you know, it took us 20 years to transform telecom from a landline sector to a mobile internet sector. And I remember those days of 90s, early 90s, when we had to wait for 10, 15 years for a landline. Do you remember that? And a Chennai-Mumbai call STD call will cost you 100 rupees. Do you remember that? And from that stage, we have come to today 1 billion mobile internet users. And the cost is 15 paisa per minute or per MB. 15 paisa from 100. So see the impact of that transformation. And I have personally been to India, as you know, has 6.4 lakh villages. And in my company, Airtel, we covered 5.5 lakh villages. And I personally traveled to about 100,000 villages personally. And I saw how villages are being transformed by that transformation. This transformation of energy and transport sector actually will be bigger than that. Because the existing infrastructure in India and anywhere in the world is bigger than what existing infrastructure of telecom was. And when the existing infrastructure of energy and transport is bigger, transformation becomes as much tougher. But the imperatives are very strong. Globally, the future of our children and grandchildren is at risk today. I think our children and grandchildren are not able to go out and play in the playgrounds, which we used to do. And I remember I used to play outside in the open till my mother came and used to slap me and take me back home when it grew dark at night. So those were the days which have to come back, where our children and grandchildren have to really play out in the open, which they don't today. One, because of internet, and second, because of pollution. And pollution really troubles you. And India is topping the charts, wrong charts, I'll say. I think 14 out of 20 cities of the world, most polluted cities are in India. Chennai, thanks a lot, is better than many, many cities of India. The second major imperative is that India imports $110 billion of oil every year. And if you see a decade, it is $1.1 trillion of oil imports. Can you imagine $1.1 trillion going out of our pocket and pocket of poorest of the poor of India and going into the pocket of oil producing nations? I mean, it's a huge, huge forex outflow from India. You know. And India, very frankly, cannot afford it. No nation can afford it. $1 trillion going out of your pocket to outside India. The third thing which also we have to remember, which is also a serious imperative, is that the growth in India is still at the starting point. Whether it's energy sector or it is transport sector, we are not mature yet. So today, in the power sector, our power consumption per capita is maybe the lowest in the world, which means we have a long way to go. As the per capita income grows, per capita utilization of power also will go up. And power is actually a prerequisite for GDP to grow up. In the auto sector, from 22 cars per 1,000 population today, it is predicted to go up to 175 cars per 1,000. So we are actually maybe 15% of our potential today. Hence, transitioning 15% for that 100% is actually easier compared to Western countries where the existing critical mass is not 15, it may be 80, it may be 90, because the penetration of auto is far, far deeper. And therefore, transition in those countries is far tougher than India. But still, transition is transition. I mean, it's never painless. And as we move ahead, I think we also have to make this transition sustainable. And within this transition, we have to come out with a global scale industry which is sustainable. Now, the other thing we have to remember is that Government of India has been extremely proactive. I work closely with Niti Aayog, and they have been very proactive on EV policies. The latest FAME 2 policy is quite positive. Government is initiating many more steps. They have earmarked 10,000 crores in the FAME 2 policy. They have earmarked 1,000 crores on charging infrastructure. They have recommended lower GST. They have recommended some tax rebates, including customs, income tax rebates and customs. So I think it's a start of a trend. I'm not saying this is the end. I'm sure government will come with more policies. And at the same time, I'll request the state government also, because it is a combination of central and state government which will finally make the right policy. It can't be only central or only state. Both together have to do it. So I'll request CII to encourage the state government also to work towards a better policy framework. The other thing which is also very important is how we charge the EV with renewable energy. Because if we charge EVs with fossil energy or thermal energy, it's not a good news. Because it is not green to green. It becomes green to green only if EV is charged by either solar or wind or any other kind of renewable energy. That actually completes the cycle. And that is sustainable in the long term and the right thing for our children and grandchildren. So I believe that that is also being experimented today, piloted, and the Government of India luckily is had very, very strong goals, and our PM is leading the goal of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030, which is the biggest goal in the world. And already we are about 80 gigawatt of renewable energy, and it's growing every year. And I think this dream of green to green charging will definitely come true. Now, are we prepared for this transformation? I think that is the crucial question of the day. And here I would like to share with you 4 perspectives. Are we ready for this transition? So 4 perspectives. One is that the government and the industry has to do joint planning. It is a planning issue. It is a joint planning issue. Objective is not that just because of technology breakthrough, we move ahead and adversely impact the present industry. That is not the objective. Objective is that the move ahead, the joint planning, has to be very orderly transition of the IC sector going to EV sector. Are you getting me? This has to be a very orderly transition. It cannot be a transition at the cost of anything in the ecosystem, at the cost of IC sector, for the least. I don't think that is the objective. So if there is a perception that the present IC sector can be adversely impacted and we can have a successful transition, that's a wrong perception. It has to be done in a joint planning way by central government, by state government, and by the industry. The present industry, IC engine industry, has to lead this transition. And if they lead it, it will be a win-win. It has to be a win-win. It has to be a win for the consumer, and it has to be a win for the sector, auto sector. And I think that is what is most important for India and also Tamil Nadu, because Tamil Nadu is the center of auto sector in India. So therefore, this joint planning actually is the most important goal for the sector, where industry itself has to lead it. Because once industry, the present IC industry leads it, the planning will be win-win, which means that the present IC industry will not feel the threat because they are themselves planning it. You can't leave the planning of the new sector to somebody else, because it is about auto sector. It's not about some other sector. And because I also look after energy sector, so energy sector guys like me have to work very closely with auto sector to do this. And there are new players. There are new players in the environment, just like ride-sharing guys, like Uber and Ola. They also have to work very closely in this joint plan, because they are now ride-sharing, as you know, is a very important part of auto sector ecosystem. Because they're changing the consumer habits, they're changing the consumer paradigms, etc., etc. So I think this is the first thing which is most important. And my worry is that if this joint planning does not happen, there will be more pains. If the joint planning happens, then you can mitigate the pains. You can do an orderly transition. Now, the second issue, which is also very important, is how do we build a very large-scale storage battery infrastructure, manufacturing infrastructure, world scale. And I'm very happy that when I've been to China, they have world scale storage battery infrastructure, both for EVs and renewable energy, because renewable energy needs storage battery too, because sun only shines in the daytime and wind also comes at certain hours of the day. So therefore storage battery is important for renewable energy also. So this infrastructure in a long term will replace the manufacturing infrastructure of engine. So today, as you were talking to me, there's the engine manufacturing infrastructure in the country, not in the country, across the world. That will be replaced by a storage battery manufacturing infrastructure across the world, including India. So that transition also has to be done very, very carefully. Because today there are a lot of people involved, and tomorrow a lot of those people can be involved. So that is the second part of this major transition, which is important for us to jointly plan. The third part is the national network of charging stations. Now, if you go back 100 years when auto sector started, I don't think there were fuel pumps or petrol stations or petrol pumps. I don't think there were a national network of petrol pumps. Same as charging stations today. So actually a friend of mine in Australia has had an idea. He talked to me over the weekend. He's planning charging stations in every fast food joint. For example, every McDonald's or Pizza Express or Pizza Hut and such kind of fast food, where when you go there for half an hour to eat, in the meantime your car is charged free of cost by McDonald's. So a lot of such business models are coming up where charging stations will be built and penetrated as deeply as possible. Now, finally charging stations, whether they're slow charging stations or fast charging stations, will have to be part of every petrol pump. And I'm sure Indian Oil, HPCL, BPCL, and all these fuel companies are planning that. Then they'll be part of every commercial office building. Just like Google. When you go to Google in US, West Coast, you see every car which goes to Google in US has a charging station. So you can actually, while you have the meeting, your car is charged. Third, in every housing, residential apartment building, maybe a slow charger in every parking slot. Next is malls, shopping complexes. Next is airports. Next is bus depots or railway stations. So in the next 5 years, I will say, there will be a massive construction and distribution of charging infrastructure across the country. And this, I think, is a huge opportunity. And gradually, the petrol pumps, which are today fully focused on petrol and diesel, will transition to becoming charging station pumps, or whatever you call it, charging station infrastructure, charging station points. These will also have battery swapping infrastructure, because charging will take time. The fast chargers, of course, can do it faster, but still not as fast. You're going to have long queues. You can't have long queues on these charging points. So therefore, swapping, and especially swapping of what Srini said, about 80% of Indian volume comes from two-wheelers and three-wheelers. So swapping of two-wheeler battery and three-wheeler battery is easier because they're lighter, and therefore it will be like a pit stop, just like F1 race. Have you seen F1 race? So the F1 car stops for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and there is charging or whatever they do in the pit stop, and it goes away. Same thing will happen with two-wheelers and three-wheelers when they come into a swapping station. The old battery will go, the new battery will come in, and the charge will be based on how much that battery is charged. And each battery will have a SIM card, each battery will have a GPS, because batteries are expensive. And battery, you need to know how much charge is there. Maybe battery only has 10%, so you replace a 10% battery with a 100% charged, freshly charged battery. So these are the things which will happen in the next 5-7 years, because charging infrastructure is a prerequisite for EV industry. Again, a huge transition. The next major transition, which is also vital, is the manpower transition. Training, retraining people for the new sector. And the objective is that as many as possible of the present manpower should be trained. For example, there is a dealership network of X brand. The same dealership network and the service network will be retrained to sell and service EVs. You don't need new staff for that. I feel the same can be retrained. There will be training modules for the EV, there will be training modules for batteries, there will be training modules for servicing, etc., which will be different from today, but not difficult to change. And therefore, manpower retraining and getting ready for the new EV revolution has to be initiated by the industry and of course supported by the government. So, in brief, these are the four major parts of the transformation which we are heading for. And my request to CII and to the Tamil Nadu automotive sector is that each of these shifts have to be orderly, have to be planned, have to be jointly planned, have to be, each should have a comprehensive transition plan so that the pain which may happen to anyone in the ecosystem should be minimized. Eliminated, but if you can't eliminate it, at least minimize it. Because the objective is to have a happy and positive transformation. Because this is good for us, this is good for our next generations. It is the right thing to do for this world. So that's what I wanted to share with all of you, my friends. I'm delighted to be, once again, delighted to be here. Thank CII, thank all the organizers, and we'll be happy to help CII and the Tamil Nadu auto sector to have a smooth, seamless and a positive transition. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your interesting suggestions. Of course, some are to some extent scary, but we'll take it forward. Whatever suggestions you have given, we'll certainly take it forward. Now, can I request Highness, His Excellency Mr. Daniel Chuduru, Ambassador of Argentine Republic, to address us.